Hello everyone, thank you for joining us for the very first executive interview series of SHIFT from MENA Fintech Association. Today we are joined by our very esteemed guest, Jan, the CEO of Etihad Payments. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
How are you doing today?
Very good, thank you.
Well, before we get into the details of everything, of this super interesting conversation about everything you're doing at Etihad Payments, we would like to hear a bit more about who you are, your background, and how you got to where you are today.
Thank you so much. First of all, thank you for having me once more, and it's beautiful surroundings here at the Kempinski Hotel. So I don't think my career path was very different than everybody else's journey. So there is always a little bit of a coincidence and some luck. And maybe in my case, it was a little bit of a naivete when I was young, when I felt, I knew everything and I could do anything. So I never say no to any opportunity. So my background is technology. I love technology. But then I found myself being responsible for issuing banknotes and coins in a European country and overseeing the national payment system. And somehow I fell in love with infrastructure and platforms and national payment systems. And I have worked so far on 4 different continents. Because when you make national payments infrastructure kind of your little niche, unfortunately there is usually only one in every single country. So I have worked in Canada, South Africa, and now I'm here in at Etihad Payments in the Emirates. And there's an Arabic saying somebody actually told me when they were hiring me that in Arabic you say that people usually build 3 houses during their lifetime. Okay. The first one you should sell, the second one you should keep and rent out, and the third one, that's actually the one where you stay with your family and it becomes your house. So I'm building my 3rd house when it comes to instant payments, and we'll see how it goes.
I thought it was about the UAE, but both are converging today. So no, that's a very interesting path, and well-traveled, experienced in all of the sectors and so many different facets. So one thing that I think the audience would be very interested to hear, especially with the emergence of Etihad Payments and how the UAE is leading the vision for instant payments and beyond. Like, what is the leading dynamic within the company, and what is your leadership philosophy to take Etihad Payments from where it started to the biggest vision that you actually helped establish for it?
Yeah, I have been quite blessed that I have worked for companies which have something unique, and that's the noble purpose. And I'm not saying that companies which have to make money and pay dividends and make money for their shareholders, it's not noble, but doing something on a national level, it actually attracts people with a different mindset. So that's something which I am using, the reason why I'm here is to do something which is right for the country. It brings financial inclusion, it brings accessibility, and it's something which attracts other people. So obviously that's something which is quite important when you are building a new company. And kind of the leadership methodology, as I mentioned, I have worked in different cultures, and I think every culture you work in gives you something. And most recently, before moving to the Middle East, I was in Africa, and one of the probably biggest leaders of our time is Nelson Mandela. And there is one quote which kind of stayed with me, what Nelson Mandela said. He said, everything seems impossible until it's done. Absolutely. And when you work in infrastructure and you have a lot of stakeholders you have to bring on the journey with you, almost everything seems impossible. And there's another saying in Africa where they say, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of what we are doing. Etihad Payments actually doesn't make anything on its own. We are part of the industry, we are part of the ecosystem in the UAE, and working, building collaborations, finding ways how people can actually join this noble purpose and join the journey which actually brings something to the country is something which I bring to the table and I really enjoy. So that's my philosophy. Try to bring teams together.
That's absolutely wonderful. And you mentioned 2 things I would like to build on. So the first one is the noble goal, and I would like us to unpack that and understand a bit more, like what is Etihad Payments trying to achieve, and what is the strategy, and what are you bringing to the UAE to really change the landscape, and then we'll tackle the challenges and how the ecosystem can work better together to deliver on things faster.
Yeah, so the central bank of the UAE, they started this FIT program, the Financial Infrastructure Transformation, which has many objectives to achieve and to bring as part of the UAE, 2031 vision of the leadership. One of the objectives was to establish a national payments company. So AEP is a national payments company. As of last year, the UAE has its own national payments corporation.
Congratulations to the UAE.
Thank you. And obviously, I think it was a wise decision because while the central bank have delivered a lot of payments solutions for the country, and in the UAE we already have some robust payments infrastructure, it's always good to have another company which can bring it to the next level. And obviously, we as a professional payments company, we are regulated and licensed by the Central Bank of the UAE, like any other licensed financial institution. So we have very strict guardrails where we can play. But what we are trying to do is to build on the good things the UAE has already had. And we are trying to bring it to the next level. So obviously, security, safety, soundness is something which has to be front of our minds all the time, and we basically cannot fall behind, even though the threats in the digital space are becoming more and more robust and challenging. Then what we are bringing more is convenience. While it's easy relatively to send money, it can be always better when you start thinking that people may not want to exchange IBANs and all these complex information. I may know your cell phone number, or the government may know your Emirates ID. I should be able to send you money. Absolutely. And if you decide to change a bank account, you just point the cell phone number to a different store of value, to a wallet, to a bank account. So kind of simplicity and convenience is another one. Speed. Payments have been sped up over the last few years. The days when payment could take a couple of days to clear and settle, they are probably gone. As a society, we have much higher expectations. So obviously speed and making sure that payment can succeed or fail within 10 seconds. It seems easy, but in the broad network space, it's not that trivial. And lastly is the inclusion, or we call it accessibility and reach. So half of the population in the UAE doesn't have a traditional bank account. There are people who have salary cards. There are people who have digital wallets. What we bring as a utility, we are a utility. We connect any store of value to our platforms, and then they can transact with each other. So it doesn't really matter if you have a salary card, if you have a bank account, if you have a wallet. We are bringing this inclusivity and reach that everybody can play on the same.
That's a really important point, because a lot of technology companies that come in, or different partners that come into the UAE, think that it's so digitized, and in reality it's not. Like even the PCE is only at 49% digital versus cash, and what you're solving for here, like looking beyond what comes to the eye at first and really bring in financial inclusion across the board with simplicity, ease and speed, while it's super secure from a cybersecurity perspective, is absolutely incredible.
That's very true. And it's not a trivial task. Me coming from Southern Africa, that's a very similar market, because many transactions are still cash transactions. I was a little surprised when I moved to the UAE, the scale of cash in circulation for the day-to-day payments. And that's probably the biggest challenge. So obviously as AEP, as Etihad Payments, we have multiple products. We launched ourselves last year, but we also launched ANI, the brand new national instant payment solution.
We want to hear more about that in a bit.
We'll do. And we have other things, obviously, but the instant payment solution is a platform which is trying to offer an alternative to cash. But it's a long journey. When you imagine that people are used to managing their budget, they are used to transacting in cash, it takes a lot of education to actually penetrate the market, make sure that people start thinking, okay, I can use other way of paying than just using cash. And it can only happen when you actually reach the acceptance. So obviously, if cash payments today are used for the day-to-day purchases, small value payments, we need to make sure that ANI or other digital payments methods are acceptable wherever you go. If you want to buy a glass of juice, you have to be assured that they will accept digital payments always, or otherwise you will always revert to having the backup and paying in cash.
No, it's really good to hear that Etihad Payments is thinking about the acceptance front before even the issuance or like the consumer-centric use cases, because what we've learned from the payments industry for the past few years is the focus was mostly on issuance, let's issue as many cards as possible, but then the acceptance points were lacking and it took a few years to catch up. So learning from what happened in the past and really focusing on acceptance from the beginning is really paramount, and I'm glad this is what's happening. And you touched on a point about the paradigm shift of culture for people to shift from cash to digital and to ANI, hopefully in the very near future. And it all comes back to the point that you mentioned earlier, like making it convenient, fast, and easy without inputting so many numbers. I'm pretty sure this mission will be achieved with very high success.
Yeah, but, yes, and we have some strong challengers, because when you think about the card experience, and again, I appreciate that instant payments in most parts of the world, they at the beginning at least, they offer a complementing solution to the card business. But when you think about your card experience, the card associations and the schemes generally, they did a pretty good job, right? It's quite friction-free, you just tap, you walk away. So scanning a QR code or doing something on the account-to-account instant payments, we have quite a high bar to actually meet. So yes, we are focusing mainly with the instant payment solution to reach and broaden the acceptance, because I just saw recently some statistics. I think there are over 600,000 small and medium-sized enterprises in the UAE.
Absolutely.
And we have only over 100,000 businesses which are enabled to accept a card payment. Technically with ANI, a piece of paper can become your digital payment acceptance, because you can print a QR code and people can come with ANI app or with their banking app, scan it and send you money. If you are a little bit more sophisticated with your tablet, you can have your dynamic QR code and it makes it easier. But we are really trying to offer acceptance of digital payments far beyond the 1/5 of businesses currently equipped to do that.
It's a huge opportunity, and like the impact of it would be absolutely huge. And we've seen the success of the QR experience in India. And I've been doing a lot of work understanding the landscape in the UAE from an acceptance perspective, given my background, and it's mostly outside of the main cities that we know, and they are generally like less tech savvy. So the static QR and just printing a piece of paper just makes life so much easier. So.
And the commercials, like obviously you have to be very efficient. You have to show that accepting cash is actually more bothersome than accepting a digital payment, which means obviously a pressure on being as efficient as possible in delivering the digital payment to the merchant. Or to
well, that's where the value comes from, and I'm pretty sure that you're not stopping only at payments, but value-added services would come down the line.
And fraud and risk management, because unfortunately, I was partially joking, but the cyber landscape is becoming very difficult. And you mentioned that there is a portion of population which may be a little bit less tech savvy, but I can tell you that even myself, I was very, very close falling for kind of a very sophisticated scam. So people have to trust the platform that it will, even though they may be tricked a little bit, the platform will assess if this is a payment which you normally make, or this is something which is out of the ordinary and we should raise some flags, and maybe your financial institutions can decide that this is not a payment they want to actually pass through on your behalf. But the risk management, the fraud management, those are some of the key value-added services which a platform like ours needs to bring. Because that's a difference between, we are not a public-facing. ANI is a payments experience, it's a scheme, but how we get it to the market is through fintechs, financial institutions, more generally. Even, recently we announced that Botim, the UAE's equivalent of WhatsApp, it's actually a channel how Ani is being brought to the market. So what we offer is kind of the services the financial institutions should not be competing on. You should not worry about clearing and settlement. You should not worry about fraud and risk management. But we want the green space or the competitive space to come up with the best possible experience for businesses, consumers, governments, and that's what we are leaving to the market, to the financial institutions.
And could you bring it down to like real life for our audience? And assuming I want to pay you for a service you provided, how would that look like? Like I would have the Ani app on my phone, or?
So there are multiple ways. So obviously, let's assume I'm not a merchant, I'm just another person. So obviously, the payment experience which we launched is accessible through financial institutions, not only banks, but other financial institutions. We currently have around a dozen financial institutions which are active and on the platform. So obviously, the important thing is that both me and you are working with the financial institutions which is already Ani enabled. By the way, by July we will have another 80 financial institutions onboarded. So currently we have broad reach because we have the large financial institutions already on site, but we will really cover the entire market in the remainder of this year. And now you have two options. Either you open your ENBD, ADCB, FAB or Botim app and you decide to send me money. Which is as easy as just finding me in your address book and sending money to me.
That's
it's secure because it will tell you that this cell phone, even though you have it stored as Jan in your phone, we actually provide the proper name of the holder of the account. So if somebody was trying to scam you, you will realize, okay, I'm trying to send to Jan, but it's actually coming back as Bob.
Okay.
Something doesn't seem right. So there are some of these features.
That's very good.
And within 10 seconds, I will get the money and I can use them easily. So that's kind of the normal use case. I could show you my QR code. So if I don't want to give you a cell phone number, or maybe the other way around, you may not want to give me your cell phone number. You can just show me a QR code on your Ani app or on your banking app. I scan it and I send you money. There are other features like splitting bills. If we go for dinner,
that's very useful.
Yeah, exactly. You can just send request to pay to all the people you had nice dinner with, and they owe you money, and they will just accept it. It's very a little bit different if I was a merchant, because we allow for this digital or dynamic QR code. So on the point of sale terminal or on their phone, they can actually generate a code which already carries, how much money you should pay, and you just scan authorize, and the money goes through without any friction. So that's the instant payment experience, but we don't stop there because Ani is really the platform for future innovation when it comes to payments in the UAE. So as we onboard now and scale the platform with more financial institutions, we will add more functionality. We are now debating about salary payment, for example. So we are working with the Ministry of HR and Emiratization, how to enable salary disbursements. Next one will be not only you push money, but you can also request money as a debit. As a mandated debit, so that's another feature which is coming. And then in the UAE, people like checks, so we are creating e-checks, a digital token equivalent of checks. So that's another thing which will be coming on Ani platform.
Oh, that would solve for everything related to rentals and real estate, because that's.
I still think we could use actually direct debits and mandates.
Yeah, there's the paradigm shift in landlords' mindsets, but so that could be a stepping stone.
Exactly, we could offer a digital alternative to the paper check I have to write a few times a year. Yes.
Yeah, every time I mess up the signature because we don't sign anymore. So.
Well, I was born in Czechoslovakia, so I'm a Czech, but I had to get an advice how to actually write a physical check because it wasn't.
Well, thank you for solving that issue for all of us. That's amazing. No, thank you. That's very, very interesting. And building on the innovation point and beyond use cases, like we have been hearing in the industry about the plans for the UAE to really embrace open finance. So how does Ani fit into that, and how is Ani pushing actually the agenda of open finance to really transform what open finance means, not just in the UAE but across the globe?
Yeah, so I mentioned Ani is kind of one of our main platforms.
Yeah.
We also have the debit card, domestic debit card system called J1, which we can talk about.
Yes.
And then there is this other massive opportunity which we are bringing into the UAE, and that's open finance. Not only open payments, not only open banking, but open finance, which includes even like insurance use cases. So when you think about it, and I mentioned that Ani is not an app, it's not, it's a payments experience, it's a payment scheme, how the payment geeks likes to call it, but it's basically an experience. We allow the banks to have their own apps where Ani is offered as part of their normal payments journey, but we also have a central Ani app which you can download from Apple Store or Google Play Store. And it's not something which we are pushing too hard, but if you have multiple bank accounts, you can actually use this Ani app to connect it to your digital wallets, to your bank accounts, and you can transfer just with a swipe of a thumb from one account or another account. So it's quite convenient. And as you are probably listening to me, this is kind of reminding a little bit of an open payments that Ani app as a third-party provider is actually connecting to different stores of value. You get information how much money is there, what were your past transactions, and then you can initiate a payment from that through a third party. So as part of the open finance, which is going to be a long journey, it's probably 2 years before all the use cases will actually come into effect. We are obviously starting with some of the payments use cases because we tried it with Ani, Ani app being the only third party for now, but there is a new licensing regime which is coming and other third party providers will be able to obtain license and use some of these APIs to similarly offer payment initiation experience, access to transaction history, access to your account balance, and offer insights, into your spending habits, maybe, where you can save some money to buy a house or something.
I think that's something every consumer would really be grateful for. No, but that's very ambitious, and it's very good news for all of us here in the UAE, and hopefully this will lead the way for other countries in the region and beyond to embrace open finance as a whole.
We have a big ambition as a country, right? UAE is and that's probably a reason why I also was so excited joining here, because there is a big national ambition. And obviously as a national payments company, we have to match that ambition.
Absolutely.
And I only kind of scratched the surface because the FIT program of the CBUAE, there are things like CBDC and many other things they are bringing to the market. So I think we are really making the financial services in the Emirates as an example how many things can be done. It's not that we are doing anything revolutionary, because you see pockets of these things happening all around the world, but coming or bringing everything together and offering it as a package that when you are a fintech, you can now use instant payment, you can participate in the card scheme, and you can do open finance, that's quite amazing.
Creating that ecosystem is what's lacking, because as you said, there's pockets and everything is too fragmented. So it becomes a very hard task for any payments provider or any fintech that comes into the picture to just aggregate. So leading the way and creating that ecosystem is absolutely brilliant. You touched upon a domestic scheme. We saw something in the news, and there's a lot of excitement and buzz around that. So could you shed some light on what you're working on that front?
So of course I love account-to-account instant payments, but as I mentioned, people are used to using cards. So it's probably still few years, maybe decades away, when we are done with cards. Or at least the digital equivalent you load on your phone. So from that perspective, and again, I have been in the UAE for a year, so I don't know exactly what were the specific motivations of the central bank to decide to launch or to start working on a domestic debit card scheme. But I can tell you that similar discussion happened in South Africa and in many other countries I have been in touch with. So obviously with the geopolitical situation these days, people don't want to be, or countries don't want to be dependent on third parties, right? It's a very black swan event that, a country would impose sanctions on another country. But if that happens, it's quite damaging, right? Imagine that half of your economy, people don't pay, people don't accept the payment. So that's a risk which I think nobody wants to be immune to, and you need to have an alternative.
Absolutely.
So some countries, they bring the instant payment solution as an alternative. What we decided to do is to launch a domestic debit card scheme, which will be called J1, which, by the way, means a precious pearl from the history of the UAE, from
I didn't
the
know
pearl
that.
business. Yeah. So that's a bit of a.
The more we know.
Exactly. Trivia for the day. So the objective obviously is to be more sovereign. Make sure that we own the IP, that we run solution which is really tailored for UAE, and it's used by people in the UAE, and everybody can rely on it. The second objective, and I don't know which one was primary versus secondary, we want to make the payments, the acceptance of cards cheaper. So I mentioned that there is 1/5 of businesses probably who are currently accepting cards. They still pay some fees for it. We believe bringing a domestic card scheme as a not-for-profit maximization organization, we will be able to challenge some of the, scheme fees, brand fees, and all of that stuff, and offer an alternative which is cheaper. So those were some of the key motivations. His Highness the President and even the Vice President, they already made first transactions on J1, so it happened. But now over the coming months, we will be rolling out with the different issuers J1 card, and you will see acceptance of J1 happening across the different merchants and point of sale terminals.
Exciting.
So it's fun. And I think we will have something we can really be proud of. So if you carry the J1 card, obviously we will still co-badge with some of the international schemes, or we will allow the issuing financial institutions to do that. So if you travel with J1 card, you can use the Visa, MasterCard, or Discover, or any other international scheme interoperability.
Yeah, for the cross-border transactions.
Exactly. Okay. We will also probably do some bilaterals, and you may have seen it in the news. So for the corridors where people from UAE travel the most, we will try to connect directly the switch here to switch, let's say, in India. So RuPay, because the technology we are getting is actually based on the RuPay technology in India. So we partnered with NPCI, and we got the IP, and now we can make it our own. But we will likely create some of these bilaterals with the countries in the GCC, India, Egypt, and stuff. But we will never create bilaterals with everyone. So that's why we also need to make sure that people still continue benefiting from the international acceptance.
That's really interesting. So it really emphasizes on the sovereignty of owning the payments in the country, but while still keeping a window.
Absolutely. In payments world, it's all about network effects, network systems. Even Visa says that they are a network of networks, right? So that's what we are. We are one of the network, and they are bringing the other network overlay over it to bring all these pieces together. So I think the cooperation, or how do we call it, that we are competing on something, but we also collaborate on many other things. That's kind of how the payment business is.
Absolutely. No one can exist in isolation. We need each other to enable each other's technologies and just keep growing and create the network effects you just mentioned. And does Etihad Payment, because you mentioned about the bilateral agreements, is there any angle to potentially export that technology to other regions? What is the prospect that you're thinking of for international expansion or enabling cross-border payments potentially?
So obviously cross-border is a big objective. I think I'm a practical guy, so we just launched our local national instant payment solution. We will be launching the national debit card scheme. We need to get our own house in order first, right? So we need to onboard all the financial institutions, and that's a lot of work. Obviously the next one will be making sure that when you send money on ANI, you can reach other countries, right? You should be able to send money to India. You should be able to send money to Pakistan, Egypt, and other parts of the world. So we will be enabling some of this cross-border. Using our technology in other parts of the world, I think we would be open to it. I think UAE is known for supporting, partners and other countries in kind of economic development. And generally, there is a good research which shows that if an economy is doing well, they need to have a well-functioning payment system.
Absolutely.
So if we have one, I think we should be able to help other countries to also bring something well-functioning into their own national economy, not just across border.
So just to bring to a close this wonderful and very insightful conversation in which I personally learned a lot, and I'm sure our audience is enjoying, how about sharing with us, like, what is your prospect on the future of digital payments in general, but most especially in the context of Etihad Payment? Like, what's next? What are your dreams for?
Well, dreams.
We can open it.
To digital payments. So listen, I think we don't know what's coming, right? When you look back 15 years ago, we had no idea how the society is going to look now. There are always emerging technologies which people say, okay, this is the next breakthrough and this is something which will change the world, like Bitcoin or distributed ledger technology. Yes, it's helping, but it hasn't really revolutionized the entire payments or fintech landscape. So the thing is, I don't know. I think we will see emergence, and that's probably on the back of Facebook and the DM, and that the central bank didn't want a commercial company to start kind of getting into their business. So that's why the CBDCs are coming on both the wholesale and the retail side. So I think there is something which is going to happen, maybe some more stable coins, kind of addressing some of the challenges of the other cryptocurrencies. So I think us as payments infrastructures, again, being in the background and taking care of something people don't want to worry about, we will have to learn how to not only clear and settle dirham, US dollar, rupee in India, but basically clear and settle also any of these tokens of values people are feeling comfortable to keep their wealth in, being it CBDC or anything else. So that's kind of coming our way. Obviously, we have a big roadmap, as I described. You know, there will be a lot of features coming as part of ANI. There is this whole new debit card scheme, open finance, which will completely change the landscape of financial services here in the Emirates. So I think that will create a lot of opportunities. We will likely see continuous emergence of fintechs. And then I think there will be a bit of a consolidation. You know, somebody will make it, somebody will not make it, somebody will get acquired. So we will probably see the cycle there. And for us as Etihad Payments, you know, the biggest challenge was to start a company which had to step into projects which were 2/3 kind of done and without too much disruption. We had to steer a little bit where we want the different products and the company to go. And that was challenging. I think maybe not a challenge, it's probably a reality of every job that you have things which are difficult. And then what I want is Etihad Payments to step out of the shadow of the central bank, because yes, we are owned by the central bank, but we want to be kind of the go-to place when people have questions about payments, they can come to us. And I have built a team I'm really proud of. So it's definitely not about me, it's about everyone in the company. And hopefully we are making our names a little bit known now. And that's also probably why I'm here. So thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for the chat.
Oh, thank you. And you guys are doing a fantastic job. Like, in just a year, you've made so many strides, and we're very excited to see everything that's coming.
Not just us.
For us and the whole country, the whole team. No, thank you so much. Thank you to the Kempinski for hosting us today. And thank you for our audience for joining us and dialing in.
Thank you.